Hi, and thank you for joining me. My name is Rob Scott, publisher at UC Today, and I'm really excited to present this year's UC Trends series. If you're a fan of UC Today, then you'll know that every October we run a special video series called UC Trends. In this insightful video series, I talk to senior executives from trailblazing vendors in UC, collaboration and CX, and discuss their perspective of the marketplace and what they predict will be the next year's game changers. We will also have some fun with them at the end of the main interview session with some quick-fire questions to reveal a bit more about their personality and what makes them tick. Stand by for UC Trends 2021. 5 years ago, you may have wondered what the collaboration industry was all about. However, today the industry is booming, bringing together cloud video conferencing and productivity to whichever screen you choose and from any location in the world. In 2020, collaboration technology adoption was catapulted into the future, and as vendors and service providers rapidly deployed services to keep businesses and employees up and running, this company not only chose to scale up its capacity, but also continue to release new features onto its platform to further enhance the remote working experience. I'm delighted to welcome to the virtual studio Cisco Vice President and General Manager, Lorrissa Horton. Larissa, thank you for joining me for UC Trends 2021. Really excited to get to know more about you and how things have been at Cisco this year. And we will get time at the end to do 20 quick-fire questions, so I'm looking forward to that too. So welcome. To get started, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do at Cisco, and how long have you been there?
Well, I'm excited to be here with you today. Let's see, my Cisco journey. So I've been here now a little bit over 2 years. I actually joined coming from Microsoft and never thought I would end up here, to be completely honest. And yet I've absolutely loved it. So what I do now, today I am working across the entire collaboration portfolio. So I'm driving our overall strategy, operations, our customer success, and our online small business. Really looking at how do we uplift across calling, meetings, messaging, devices, endpoints, really everywhere that we play. How do we strategically move forward together and grow?
Great, thank you. And Cisco, colossal business really, isn't it? I mean, it's a huge business nowadays and an evolving proposition. So, today's market, very different to what it was, let's say, a decade ago. What, from your perspective, what makes a successful organization in today's market?
So a successful organization, I think, requires quite a few different things. Number one, I actually think, is people and being able to attract the best talent in the market. With Cisco, I think they've done a good job really trying to make sure that they are attracting the type of people they need for the businesses that they are trying to grow. Some of this is done through acquisition, I'm sure you guys have seen, and others obviously just hiring competitive talent in the market. So I do think people is at the forefront of a successful organization. Next, I do think is around being able to disrupt ourselves and look at, like you said, if you look a decade ago and how much we were playing in the software industry today, I don't know that everyone would have imagined that we would be such a software house. We are still hosting, globally about meetings for over 500 million people. And typically, even when I first started hearing about Cisco, I was thinking routers and switches only, eventually security. But it didn't really connect to me how much of the software industry was dependent on, obviously, the infrastructure that Cisco has now provided worldwide. And thinking through how we are innovating across the world when we are able to provide better security into understanding what applications are being used and how they're being used, as well as understanding how people connect across the world, across all mediums, right? And so, yes, of course, that's partly collaboration, but it's not just that. It's the support that we provide, and I think the innovation we do with our partners, which we are a heavy partner-driven organization.
I love what you said about disrupting yourselves. I mean, I imagine not many companies actually look at it that way in terms of, let's disrupt ourselves before disrupting the marketplace. But that's a really interesting perspective. In terms of Cisco standout moments, 2020, you come around the corner from 2019, collaboration division is growing, it's acquiring, and then a pandemic hit. So I mean, what's the year been like for Cisco so far?
Well, I don't think it's any different from anyone in that it was a crazy year and it continues to be a crazy year. I'm often reminded we are still far from the end of the year, so we don't quite know exactly what will happen. But obviously, with a pandemic hitting, it was a worldwide experiment we never imagined, which was every single working person in an office being sent home. And we had businesses, all over the world asking very basic questions like, how do we keep going? What does business continuity look like? And it was interesting, the position we were able to take, both as someone who is very experienced in remote work. So I myself actually have been working primarily remote for the last 2 years, the entire time I've been at Cisco. And I've been running a team of nearly 1,000 people, of which maybe 10% is in my time zone. So we've gotten a lot of practice of how to do this work from home situation and how to run a business while I may not be seeing all of my teammates. So I think we're able to provide a lot of guidance around how to do that and help people really out of this fear of, can my business continue to sustain itself while we are no longer coming together and doing the same ceremonies we typically did every day as part of our culture, as part of how we interact with our customers and everyone in our ecosystem. So we took, I think, a very large role in helping with that transformation. Our main focus actually was around, I would say, healthcare, education, and government. Just like anyone else, we have limited resources and we all need to sleep. So we really had to buckle down and say, okay, where can we help during this pandemic? Where are there opportunities where our strengths as Cisco and our reach as Cisco can have the largest impact on the world? And that is, early on, when it was definitely hitting first in China, it was connecting doctors to each other, who was trying to understand what was happening and obviously trying to look at ways to deal with a situation, everything from sharing protocols to research. We were involved from the devices on the ground that they were using and hauling around on carts, all the way to obviously providing networking to stand up hospitals in the middle of parks and our collaboration capabilities to connect people to each other and their families in this very difficult time. And so we took a very large role. We donated, obviously, software, hardware. We were actually pulling our DX80s out of our offices and sending them over to doctors, since both doctors who had just started in their frontline work, as well as ones who unfortunately were impacted by COVID and still wanted to help from their homes, we needed to get them connected. And that was really how we were able to do that.
That's an amazing effort from Cisco. In terms of workplace, I mean, the workplace is changing, work styles is changing. Remote working, anywhere working, home working is obviously the big trend this year. But from your perspective, what's that new norm look like? Because we're going through these different stages, and I'm keen to just hear from you how you perceive the kind of the lay of the land going forward.
Yeah, so I think we've been working remotely long enough now that we have proven to many, I think, leaders that it is possible to sustain yourself in a remote capacity. And not only possible, but actually desirable by many. We've been doing a lot of research and talking to many customers, obviously going through this transformation. And there was interesting findings for them. Number one, they were shocked to see that they were reaching upwards of double the productivity levels that they had when they were in the office.
Wow.
Two, they were able to change their financial planning because as people were successful at home, they were able to then say, okay, where do we want to spend? Do we really need the real estate that we have today? Or can we maybe augment some of that spend and look at other places where we still have a physical building? I think we still need to come together, but maybe not the same size, maybe not the same way. Third was looking at how they were able to hire more globally. We are seeing trends of people deciding, maybe I don't have to live in San Francisco or New York to get the job that I want or of my dreams. Maybe I can move somewhere where I can afford a home. And this is an interesting trend because it's actually taking folks who had to pick between work or life in terms of the kind of life they wanted to live and the kind of career that they wanted to have. And now they don't have to pick because they're seeing these huge employers say, actually, you can work from anywhere you want to work. Like that is a game changer in the industry. And while we were going through this transformation, we are seeing people have this increased flexibility in how they get their job done and really a cultural change in how you are measured by the outcomes and not necessarily are you sitting at your desk from 9 to 5 and hence doing your work. And then last but not least, we are seeing businesses gain new flexibility and agility in how they're able to deal with the circumstances. And so everything from 100% remote to partially hybrid, and then all the way back to the office. And unfortunately, in some areas of the world, they went all the way back to the office only to go all the way back home. And so I think the preparedness is around being able to deal with anything and being able to have an infrastructure that allows you and your employees to work from absolutely anywhere so that you do not put your business at risk.
Thank you. And just looking forward into next year, what do you think, what technologies, what trends will have the greatest impact on the way we work, the industry, and the end customer ultimately going forward?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change is that we are using video on at home all the time. And whenever a consumer behavior changes, it will radically change the expectations in the office. So prior to this, it's not like we didn't have video. We've all had video for a while now. For years, we've been pushing a video first experience. Yet there was this discomfort about getting onto video, exposing your home, exposing, more information about yourself, feeling the need to, get ready, to be ready on camera. And yet a lot of that has gone away, right? So while we were here during COVID, we talked to our family, to our friends, everyone was on video because you could not meet in person. And that has changed the perception of being on video even at work. So I do think that will be a major change. Walking into a conference room where there's just a phone and you can't see people, I think will be odd. It'll be hard to go backwards in that regards, right? So I do think we will see folks expect to be able to have video on in their conference rooms and the way they work everywhere. So that's definitely one. I think two, there is this overall awareness as people go into hybrid around what are surfaces that are shared and how much of that do we want to keep versus how much of that can we actually evolve into, for example, wireless pairing and sharing. Again, we've had this for a while, and yet right now we are seeing this increase in adoption because people don't want to touch the same HDMI cord over and over and over again. Instead, they're saying, oh, wait, I can start my meeting on my phone and it works in this conference room. It works wherever I am. I can share from my laptop without touching anything. I feel safer. And that's actually pushed this innovation and technology forward from an adoption standpoint for a different reason. And yet people are now finding that. And we're no longer having the conversation about which dongle do I need for this room and how many dongles do I need depending on all the devices that may come in. It's just gone. Everyone is just now expecting that, no, this is just how you do it moving forward. And so I think those are huge transformations. So video first and kind of really leaning in on that software side. And how to leverage the capabilities of software. I think the other pieces are as we're innovating around the remote worker and introducing things like an assistant for everyone so that someone is taking notes for you, someone is tracking decisions or action items. When you go back into the office, if you are not using a video meeting, you will miss that because now there is no one who's recording and taking notes for you and someone actually has to physically do it. So really looking at how do you bring in a hybrid assistant even when you're all sitting there in front of each other. So incorporating that technology and really getting the value out of that collaboration portfolio, even if no one's actually on a remote end. So I think that's another big change that we'll see is really leveraging the tools that have actually evolved during this time.
That's great. So the cognitive collaboration story is not finished yet, I'm hearing. So we're going to see more from Cisco.
Not at all. Not at all.
Larissa, thank you for sharing those great insights. Larissa, thanks for being a sport and getting involved in our quickfire questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
First job.
Working in a factory putting price labels on boxes. It was a retail factory at, I believe, 15 and a half.
Oh, that's a good job. Favorite day of the week?
Probably Saturday. Although it's not that different these days because we're always inside and every day we're working, but Saturday still.
You're right, they're all blurring nowadays, aren't they? Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or speak to animals?
Every language in the world, without a doubt.
What's the most inspirational book you've ever read and why?
That is a hard one. I'm trying to, I don't actually know if I have one to pick. There's a book that I read very early in my PM career. I think I was in the second year of being a product manager, and I cannot remember the title about it. Oh, Design of Everyday Things. That was not necessarily inspirational, but it was monumental in how I changed the way I think in my career and in my job and creating things as a living.
Great. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
The best advice was the best way to do your job is to find a way where you will not be needed and find ways for others to grow into that role.
That's good advice. If you could teleport anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Today, I have not seen my family in Canada now for almost 7 months. I would go to Winnipeg, Manitoba, a tiny, or I guess tiny compared to the rest of the world, city where I was born and raised, and see all of my family and friends there.
Voice call or video call?
Video. I am 100% video all the time. I want to see your reaction to what I say, even if you're not saying anything.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. Dawn or dusk?
Dusk.
Do you believe in fate?
I do believe in fate.
What's worse, ironing or gardening?
Definitely ironing. The dry cleaners are my friends.
Most watched movie ever?
Ooh. It would probably have to be, at this point, only of recent, Frozen 2, because my children have fallen in love with the music. If it was in my non-parent days, maybe Love and Basketball. I was a huge basketball fan, and I played my entire childhood, teen years, on all the way into college. So I think for some reason we ended up watching that frequently.
Very good. Well, the Frozen one, you've just got to let it go. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Passionate, innovative, and family-oriented.
If you were given an all-expenses-paid trip to the north of England, would you take it?
Yes, I love traveling in general. My daughter at 9 months had been to, or a year old, had been to 10 countries. So we take our family everywhere and to any place and more to experience new things than anything else.
Great. Well, you can come and visit me in the north of England anytime.
I will take you up on that offer. Will it be all expenses paid, though, like you mentioned?
Who is your greatest inspiration?
My mother, who holds a bar so high that I probably will never achieve in my life. But she was a developer. Actually, she started as an accountant, became a software developer, and still manages to do everything as a mom and everything as a professional. So definitely biggest inspiration.
That's an interesting transition, isn't it, from accountant to developer? Yeah, I've not heard that one.
Yeah, she was an accountant in the Philippines, came to Canada and realized, if I have to go back to school, I might as well do something that will be part of where the industry is going, and became a software developer. Started on mainframes, and then I think we were learning object-oriented programming around the same time while I was in school. So
Wow.
it's been an interesting journey for her.
Super. Type, touch, or speak?
Probably speak, because you can communicate way more through just the words. and all the intonation and emotion tied to that.
Elvis or the Beatles?
The Beatles. Probably because my family listened more growing up to the Beatles, and so we can probably sing almost all of those songs on karaoke in comparison to Elvis.
Say good day, mate, in an Australian accent.
Good day, mate.
Very good. If you could go back in time, what date would you go back to and why?
That's a good question. There's been so many good memories now that it's actually hard to pick one, and I'd feel almost biased picking one in particular. But one day I would pick is our wedding day, and there is a very particular reason. We thought we would have a small wedding, intimate wedding on the beach in Mexico, and ended up with 140 people that flew over to celebrate with us. And so we had 140 people of our friends, our family, and everyone who shaped our lives sitting on a beach with us, drinking and celebrating. And it was definitely one of those moments you will never forget and will want to relive over and over again.
That does sound like the greatest day ever. Which new technology will transform the future?
I don't know if it's a new technology, but I am still shocked at how much we are able to innovate around our phone. Whether it is attachments to the phone that is really taking vertical challenges, whether it is, photography, commerce, even healthcare. I am shocked at how much we are able to get done in the palm of our hands. And I think that'll only continue further as we reimagine the way we do everything with a computer in our hand and devices that are connected into that ecosystem, via Bluetooth, via all of the ways that you now connect. It's really shocking to me how I will explain the way things used to work to my children, because now it all seems to revolve around this phone.
And finally, what's been your greatest achievement ever?
Good question. I think the greatest achievement so far is, at one point my mom had mentioned, as someone who is in the tech industry, you have to recognize the challenges as a woman, as a mom, and as a leader. And you will have to pick. There will be points in time where you have to pick one or the other. And I am so proud to say that I have not had to pick. And I've been able to find ways with the support of great people and family to have both. So I am a mom of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I run an organization of 1,000 people at a great company. And those are not two things that people are able to say together. And so I'm really proud that I've managed to get to that point and break down this perception that it is not possible, since clearly I am living and breathing it. And there are many other women that are growing into these kinds of opportunities.
And thank you, Larissa. It's been really great speaking to you today. I wish you certainly all the best for the future. And thank you very much for joining me for UC Trends.
Thank you for having me.